Hello everyone, you are on the channel Scary Story. Tonight I have a tale for you that will make you think twice about staying late at the library, especially one with a long and shadowed history. So, find a comfortable spot, turn down the lights, and let's begin. Our story follows a young university student named Leo. Leo was a history major, the kind of person who found more life in dusty old books than in crowded student bars. His passion was local history, and his university's library, the oldest building on campus, was his second home. The Atherton Library was a grand Gothic structure with vaulted ceilings, towering shelves, and the constant comforting scent of aging paper and leather. Most students stuck to the newer, brightly lit wings, but Leo preferred the deep, quiet stacks of the historical archives in the library's oldest section. One evening, while researching a paper on the town's founding, Leo stumbled upon a reference to a silent wing of the Atherton Library. The text was vague, mentioning it was a section sealed off in the early 20th century after a series of unfortunate incidents. Intrigued, Leo couldn't find any official records or maps detailing this wing. It was as if it had been wiped from the library's history. He asked the head librarian, a kind but stern woman named Mrs. Gable, about it. Her friendly demeanor vanished for a moment. She simply said, "Some doors are best left unopened, Mr. Hayes. Focus on your approved research materials." Her warning, of course, only fueled Leo's curiosity. For the next week, Leo became obsessed. He spent his days poring over old architectural plans and forgotten library ledgers. Finally, he found it. A faint outline on a blueprint from 1890, showing a small wing connected to the main archive hall. The entrance was marked, but on the current library map, the area was just a solid wall. According to the plans, the entrance should be right behind a massive, rarely moved shelf of 19th century genealogical records. His heart pounded with excitement. He had to see what was inside. That Friday, Leo decided to act. He knew the library's late-night security was minimal, consisting of a single guard who mostly stayed near the front entrance. He packed a flashlight, his phone, and a small crowbar in his backpack. As closing time approached, he found a secluded study carrel in the deep stacks and hid, his heart thudding against his ribs. The final announcement echoed through the vast halls. The lights dimmed one by one, and then silence. A deep, profound silence that felt heavier than usual. After waiting for what felt like an eternity, Leo crept out of his hiding spot. The library at night was a different world. Familiar shelves became towering monoliths, and every creak of the floorboards sounded like a footstep behind him. He navigated by the pale moonlight filtering through the high arched windows. He reached the wall of genealogical records, his flashlight beam dancing over the dusty spines. The shelf was heavy, bolted to the floor, but Leo noticed the bolts were old and rusted. With the crowbar and a lot of straining, he managed to pry one side of the shelf away from the wall. A low groan of protesting metal echoed in the stillness. Behind it, just as the blueprint had shown, was a door. It was made of dark, heavy wood with no handle, only a keyhole filled with rust and cobwebs. The door wasn't locked. With a push, it swung inward on groaning hinges, releasing a gust of stale, musty air that smelled of decay and something else. Something faintly metallic. Leo hesitated for a moment, the librarian's warning echoing in his mind. But his curiosity was a roaring fire. He stepped through. He was in a narrow corridor. The air was cold, much colder than the rest of the library. The walls were lined with empty shelves, thick with a blanket of gray dust. It was utterly silent. No hum of electricity, no distant city sounds, just a heavy, oppressive quiet. He walked deeper, his flashlight beam cutting a path through the darkness. He passed several empty reading rooms, the tables and chairs coated in the same thick layer of dust, looking as if they'd been abandoned mid-sentence a century ago. Then he found the main reading hall of the silent wing. It was a large circular room with a domed ceiling. Unlike the other rooms, the shelves here were full, but the books were wrong. They weren't bound in leather or cloth. They were bound in a pale, almost translucent material, crisscrossed with faint lines. As Leo got closer, a wave of nausea hit him. He reached out and touched one. The cover was soft, oddly warm, and felt disturbingly like skin. He recoiled, his hand flying to his mouth. The books weren't just bound in a material that looked like skin. It was skin. Panic began to set in. He backed away, his flashlight shaking wildly. The beam caught something on the far side of the room. It was a librarian's desk, and someone was sitting behind it. Leo froze, his breath catching in his throat. It was a figure, slumped over a large open book. It was perfectly still. A mannequin? A remnant of the past? He cautiously approached. The figure was wearing an old-fashioned librarian's uniform. As he got closer, he saw the waxy, pale complexion, the sunken eyes. It wasn't a mannequin. It was a body, unnaturally preserved in the cold, still air. On the desk, in front of the body, the open book was one of the skin-bound volumes. But this one had fresh, wet ink on its pages. Leo leaned closer, his horror warring with his insatiable curiosity. The script was an elegant, looping cursive, but the words were a language he didn't recognize. And then he saw it. At the bottom of the page, a new entry was being written. Ink was appearing on the page, forming words by itself. It was writing his name. Leo. A choked gasp escaped his lips. At that exact moment, the head of the preserved librarian snapped up. Its eyes were milky white, devoid of pupils, and they fixed directly on him. A low, dry whisper slithered from its cracked lips, a sound like dead leaves scraping across pavement. It wasn't a human voice. It was the sound of the library itself, ancient and malevolent. Silence, it hissed. Leo didn't scream. The sound was trapped in his throat. He scrambled backward, falling over a chair, his flashlight clattering across the floor. He turned and ran. He fled through the suffocating darkness, the hissing whisper of silence echoing behind him, seeming to come from the walls, the floor, the very air. He burst back into the main library, the familiar scent of old paper now a comfort rather than a curiosity. He didn't stop to push the shelf back. He just ran. He ran past the towering shelves, through the grand halls, his lungs burning. He didn't stop until he was outside, gasping in the cool night air, the library's dark silhouette looming behind him like a tomb. He never went back. He changed his major the next day, transferred universities at the end of the semester, and moved to a different city. He never told anyone what he saw. How could he? Who would believe him? Sometimes, late at night, when it's too quiet, he can still hear it. A faint, dry whisper on the edge of his hearing. Silence. He knows that the silent wing is still there, waiting. And he knows that his name is written in one of its books. He is now part of its collection, and that's our story for tonight. A reminder that some knowledge is not meant to be found, and some doors are kept closed for a very good reason. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the dark. Until next time, stay safe and check your books carefully.